Roman pontiff. Now, those people they were saying, well, obviously we were saying that there is no way that you can. We understand that love is universal and love does not know boundaries. However, a Catholic getting married to this category of people must be very careful because they may not have the same faith, the same understanding of Christian faith. You get married to somebody who is not a Catholic, some areas of faith you may completely disagree. For example, what we are celebrating today, Corpus Christi, Corpus Domini, the body and blood of Christ. Is there a distinction between our understanding of the Eucharist and the understanding of the Protestants? Is there a difference? A very huge difference. So now you can imagine you get married to somebody who is not a Catholic and does not understand the Eucharist the way you understand. That could be perhaps the beginning of misunderstanding in that family and many other things. Okay? So the other one is there are those ones who can't assume the essential obligations of marriage for causes of a psychic nature. Okay? That one plus the first one that we saw is giving us the fact that anybody with mental illness cannot make a matrimonial consent. Okay? Canon 1095, it tells us that for the matrimonial consent to be there, to exist, the contracting parties must be at least not ignorant that marriage is a permanent partnership between a man and a woman, ordered to the procreation of offspring by means of heterosexual intimacy open to fertility. And here there are so many elements, fundamental elements. The matrimonial consent, those two parties, at least they should understand, one, that marriage is a permanent partnership until death doth part. Second, it is between a man and a woman. It can't be between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, a woman and her pet dog, or a man with his pet dog. Okay? Because these days you hear some of those weird things. People getting married to the animals. Okay? Not even, that cannot even be called marriage. That is an abomination. Third, that this marriage is ordered to the procreation of offspring. And how do you do the procreation of offspring? By heterosexual intimacy open to fertility. And this is why the Catholic Church teaches against what? Artificial methods of birth control. Because they block fertility. They do not allow conception. And however, because the Catholic way of understanding matrimonial intimacy is that it must be open to life. Because that is how it was designed by God right from the very beginning. Consequently, according to Canon 1103, a marriage, if entered into because of force or grave fear from without, even if unintentionally inflicted, so that a person is compelled to choose marriage in order to be free from it. So it cannot happen. When there is force, grave fear, or any other element that may come to limit consent, then that marriage is null and void. Okay? However, now, how is the matrimonial consent given? It must be given in words. Now, what about those ones who cannot speak? I mean, they cannot speak the way we speak. How do they do it? The church allows the possibility of equivalent sign language, because it is also a language just like the language that we speak, the way we speak. So, mute people can get married, and mute can get married to one who does not have that problem, or even two mute people can get married because they are, the church allows the possibility of either in words spoken or in sign language. Okay? Okay, now let's go to the ministers of marriage. We have what we call the ordinary ministers. First, the ordinary of the local of the diocese, the priest, or the deacon. But the deacon must be delegated by the priest. And in fact, even canonically, it ought to be the parish priest. And therefore, the assistant parish priests, also they are ordinary ministers of the matrimony, but however, they are delegated by the parish priest. The deacon cannot just wake up and go and do marriage. He has to be officially delegated by the priest. Well, what about other ministers? For example, in the Eucharist, we talk about the extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist. Also, the canon law has that possibility, gives that possibility that lay people can be given that delegation. Okay? And so this canon 1:11:12, Sabbatical 1, states that with the prior favorable opinion of the Conference of Bishops and after the permission of the Holy See, who is the Holy See? The Vatican. And who is the apex of the Vatican? The Pope himself. Has been obtained, the diocesan bishop can delegate lay persons to assist at marriages where priests or deacons are lacking. So, that is possible, but however, the bishop must get a favorable opinion to the Conference of Bishops. For example, in Kenya, if, for example, our bishop, Philip Panyol, wants to establish lay ministers of marriage, he has to get what? A favorable opinion from the KCCB. Who is the KCCB? Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops. And then he must get permission from the Pope to do that. Okay? And then after that, and obviously then, in order for them to be established, then also they must be given some kind of theological permission, so that they understand what they are going to do. But that can only happen. Do you think now, for example, Philip Panyol, our bishop, can simply decide to do that? Why? First reason, there is no insufficiency of priests in the Archdiocese of Nairobi. It can only happen if there is a problem with the number of priests. Okay? And that is why I say to you, you people, you are very, 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 very lucky. Okay? Why are you very lucky? Here you have 4 priests, resident priests. You have mass every day, and not even mass 1, 3 every day. And sometimes we have even 4 or 5. Because sometimes we have equal masses, memorial masses, matrimony, Jumuiyas come and they ask for mass and we are present. Okay? And then in every mass that we have here, from Monday to Saturday, there are 2 priests in that mass. One celebrating and the other one in the confession box. Then on Sunday, the Sunday is the most the day that manifests our capacity of having priests. In every mass, there are 4 priests. One celebrating and 3 in the confession. That is a privilege. There are some places where people have mass after every 2 years, after every 1 year, after even 5 years. I was in a parish in Brazil that was in the Amazon jungle, in the state called the state of Amazonia. And that parish, we were 2. And the parish was equal to 1 county. And we had 350 local churches. Do you think we were able to go to all those churches on Sunday? No. In fact, some of them, we would make our program and we would go to them after every 2 to 3 years. In fact, I was the parish priest there for 7 years. There are some places I went only once. And they were already hearing that they had a parish priest called Father Joaquin from Kenya. And when you go there and you stay there for 2 weeks. Maybe a certain family will prepare for you 1 room in their house or in the Maloccas, and then you stay there because you have to do everything from catechism, preparing them for Eucharist, and then after that you do the confessions. Then after that you prepare people for marriage. Then after you prepare them for marriage, you do the marriage, and then you do the first Holy Communion. You do all sorts of things in 2 or 3 weeks, and then you go back home. And the nearest out station, we were going on horseback for 4 days. 4 days trotting through the forest. And sometimes obviously we would go, and then there were stations where we would change the horses, because the horses also become so tired. And then other times you go by boat, by ferry boat for 2 or 3 days. So here you are swimming in priests. Thank God that you have that possibility. Now you can imagine the situation of a bishop of a place like that one. People want to get married, but they have no priests. And therefore the bishop can do that process of requesting to be given the authority to establish lay ministers of the sacrament of matrimony, because of lack of priests and deacons. Venue. Where is the sacrament of marriage supposed to be celebrated? What place? The church, and not in the club, and not in, I don't know, a garden somewhere, and I don't know where else. A Catholic marriage must be celebrated within the church. Good. And then we have the rite of marriage. The rite of marriage can either be celebrated by itself, that is outside Mass, And it can also be celebrated within Mass. And obviously, if it is celebrated by a deacon, it means that it is going to be celebrated outside Mass, because the deacon cannot celebrate Mass. And also the priest can also celebrate it outside Mass. But because this is a matrimony of Catholics, and perhaps they go for communion, that is why we normally, in normal circumstances, we celebrate it within the marriage, within the sacrament of the Eucharist. Whether it is celebrated within the Mass or outside the Mass, the rite has the following stages. 1, statement of intention. The priest asks both parties whether they have come there with freedom and that they have given their consent mutually one to the other one. Okay? So that is the first stage, the statement of intention. The priest asks them whether they have come freely to celebrate that marriage. And if they say no, or one of them says no, that is the end of that celebration of the matrimony. The Mass goes on, but the matrimony is not done. Then after the statement of intention, there is the exchange of consent. Okay? And that is where, well, it isn't so important who starts, because sometimes I see them there struggling. Who starts and who comes after? It is immaterial. This is the moment where they say what? I receive you as my wife. I will respect you. I will be faithful to you until death doth part. Both of them say the same thing, the same words. Consenting, demonstrating that they have consented. And obviously, that one is just the last moment, the last moment of the consent, because the consent is given before. Once you meet, and once the man goes down on his knees and requests for marriage, I don't know whether here in Africa we do that. We do that here because now we keep on copying what we see in the TV, okay? And it is very wonderful to see that. Ne? However, the consent comes from the very beginning, that both of you have agreed to, one to be the husband and the other one to be the wife, okay? So the consent, exchange of consent. And then that consent is officially received by the priest. And that is why you are asked, have you consented? Have you accepted to come in front of the church, in front of the minister of the church, to give yourselves into marriage forever? And then they consent, okay? So that consent is received by the representative of the church, and that is the priest. Then after that, we do the blessing and the exchange of the rings. And they put on those rings into the fingers one of the other one, saying, in the name of the Father, receive this ring as a sign of my fidelity, my respect to you, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay? And which is the finger? Sometimes I see them fumbling there, right? Which is the finger of, what is it called? There is another word that they use for it, no? Is it the principal finger? It is this finger, no? Okay? And of the left hand, okay? Well, obviously this is a tradition that comes from Europe, okay? Because it could also be, if you go to other African societies, perhaps they have other signs. And the ring is not the most important thing. The ring is just a symbol of the love and fidelity that you have promised one another, okay? Then after the blessing and exchange of the rings, we have the nuptial blessing. And this nuptial blessing is given immediately after the prayer of our Father. They come there in front of the altar, and the Father says a very long prayer, praying over them, praying that the grace of God may come upon them, praying that they may continue being faithful to one another until death doth part, and even praying that they may get the grace of children, and also praying that they also may see the grace of their children's children. But however, there is, in the rubrics, there is a note down there that when it is the marriage of a couple that is an old couple, you can omit that, because already they have seen their children, and they have seen their children's children, and they have seen perhaps even the children of their children of their children. Okay? But however, who knows, they may have another one. Okay? Good. So that nuptial blessing is very important. And then after the nuptial blessing, we have the signing of the matrimonial certificates. And these certificates are always in 3 copies. One will be given to the newlywed. The other one will remain in the church for purposes of register. And the other one is taken to the office of the Attorney General. And here, why does it go to the office of the Attorney General? Because the marriages that we celebrate in the church, they have civil effects. In fact, that certificate is given by the government of the Republic of Kenya. Okay? And there are some countries where they have separated the two. The Christian marriage as a sacrament and the civil marriage. But also in those same countries, you can also opt to do the Christian marriage with civil effects. Okay? And also here there is a certain kind of separation, because if you don't want to do the church marriage, you can go and you do in front of a judge. Okay? Is it a sacrament? No. It is not a sacrament. If you want a sacrament, you'll have to let alone come to the church. And will you be given another certificate? No. You can only be given an internal certificate of the parish. And this is one of the aspects which falls under the convalidation of marriage. Okay? Then, after they have signed the certificates, and the certificates have been taken to those 3 different places, then there is a notification of marriage which is sent to the parish where either the bride or the bridegroom were baptized. It is going to be registered here in the matrimonial register, but also it is sent to the place, to the parish where you were baptized. And why? Because it must also be entered into the register of baptism, because in the register of baptism we have all the sacraments that are given to that particular person. Okay? Just as the proclaimers or the banns are sent to the parish where you were baptized, also the notification of marriage is given to that parish so that they may register that marriage. Okay? Ni sawa sawa. Hapo is to avoid what? To avoid later on you going there and say you never got married. Okay? The Catholic Church has a lot of protocols that have a lot of meaning. Okay? We must ask them of your freedom, and that is why the proclams or the banns or the bands they are announced 3 times in the parish where you were born and baptized, and in the parish of your residence, and also in the parishes where you have gone through, so that we may avoid what? Impediments. And that is even why after they have done the announcements, they normally say, if there is anybody with an objection, kindly come and notify the father in charge. And that impediment or that objection, it's not simply because you don't like that person, or I don't know, that person you were defeating that person in mathematics in primary school, but it is because of the impediments, the ones that we were talking about in the last session. Okay? Good. And for you to see the importance of putting that in the registers, we have 2 distinct canons, Canon 1121 and 1122, that determine that the register must be written. And if it is not written, when the bishop comes for the pastoral visit, the first thing that he has, the father in charge, are the registers, and to see whether they are updated. And if you don't update them, the bishop can even tell you, you cannot be the parish priest, come and stay with me for some few years, or you go back to the seminary, you stay there in the seminary, where you are going to be taught about the importance of registers in the Catholic Church. And can you imagine, there is a subject in theology that is all about keeping of registers. A whole subject. And if you fail in that, it is in fact a compulsory subject. If you fail in that, you cannot graduate. Okay? Good. Now, let's go to the other subtopic, the separation of spouses. One, there could be a separation of the spouses with the dissolution of the bond. A marriage, that's the first principle that always we must take into consideration. A marriage that is ratum et consummatum. Do you remember these 2 concepts in the last session? A marriage that is ratified and consummated. Ratified means the celebration was legitimately done. Consummated, it means that that marriage was consummated by both of them through heterosexual intercourse. That is the consummation. So, a marriage that is ratified and consummated can be dissolved by no human power and by no cause except death. That is the first principle that we must take into consideration. However, we know very well that human beings are very different human beings, and things may happen. Okay? However, for a just cause, those 2, even if the marriage was ratum et consummatum, they can be separated if there is a just cause. And we are going to see those causes. In case of a Catholic being married to a non-Catholic, the just cause could be a Pauline privilege. And what is the Pauline privilege? When you get married to a non-Catholic, you remember what you were saying the other time? That both of you are going to be prepared, and even the Catholic party is going to be instructed in terms of what? in terms of the fact that you, who is Catholic, you are going to maintain your Catholic faith, and the children will be brought up in the Catholic way. That is what we call the Pauline privilege. However, if I just accept that because I want to get married to you, but then later on I tell you, you know, now we are married, you are going to come to my church, and our children are not going to go to the Catholic Church. That is a just cause for separation of the spouses, not divorce. We are not talking here about divorce. Separation. Okay? Okay, let's go to the others. Spouses have the duty and right to preserve conjugal living unless a legitimate cause excuses them. That is Canon 1151. Among the legitimate causes that may cause this separation are: one, what is this? Let's read it. Adultery. And let us read this sentence. Although it is earnestly recommended that a spouse moved by Christian charity and concerned for the good of the family not refuse forgiveness to an adulterous partner and disrupt conjugal love, nevertheless, if the spouse did not condone that fault of the other expressly or tacitly, the spouse has the right to severe conjugal living unless the spouse consented to the adultery, gave cause for it, all has committed adultery himself or herself. That is Canon 1152. If you consent to adultery, can you go and accuse in the ecclesiastical tribunal and want a separation from the ecclesiastical tribunal on that basis? No, because you consented. I hear when I was in Brazil, there were so many weird things that people were doing. And there was this phenomenon of people being part of a club. Now I don't remember the words in Portuguese, that they would go and meet together, all of them, the couples, and then they would exchange the couples. I go, you are my wife, I go there with you, I exchange you with his wife, and I get his wife, and we commit adultery. That would be condoning. Okay? Or you send your husband or your wife, and you give her the permission to go and commit adultery. Then you cannot let alone go to the ecclesiastical tribunal to accuse her of adultery and wanting what? Separation. Okay? So adultery would be one case, one possible cause of that separation. So tacit condonation, there is even a canon on that, Canon 1152, Sabbatical 2. This happens when the offended spouse has had marital relations voluntarily with the offending spouse after having become certain of the adultery. The ecclesiastical tribunal, the judges of the ecclesiastical tribunal will ask you this question. After you became certain that there was infidelity, did you have conjugal heterosexual relationship with your husband or with your wife? If you say yes, then that is called you condoned. It will be understood that you forgave. Okay? Is it clear? Naona kama ni nini? Is it clear? Is it clear? So, if you are offended in this area of infidelity, and you want maybe, and the separation here is for you to go and think, not divorce. It is for you to be a little bit away from that person, so that also that person can feel what the impact and the seriousness of the offense that was committed. You go a little bit to your house, or you go to a friend, or you go back to your home, your maiden home, for that person to think. However, if after 2 or 3 weeks you are cohabiting once again matrimonially, then the ecclesiastical tribunal will take it for granted that you have forgiven. Okay? The other one is the offended spouse. The offended spouse observed conjugal living with the offending spouse for 6 months. If you are offended today, and then you don't report that offense in 6 months, it will be understood that you have forgiven. Okay? Because you cannot, let alone go to accuse your spouse after 5 years or even 7 years that, 7 years ago he cheated on me or she cheated on me. Okay? That would not be a very good ground for that separation. Canon 1, 1152, if the innocent spouse has severed the conjugal living voluntarily, the spouse is to introduce a cause of separation within 6 months to the competent ecclesiastical authority, which, after having investigated all the circumstances, is to consider carefully whether the innocent spouse can be moved to forgive the fault and do not prolong the separation permanently. The ecclesiastical tribunal will always have as the objective the possibility of forgiveness. Okay, let us keep the question for the last moment so that we go through the other concept. The second legitimate cause for separation is violence. And here, because many people accuse the Catholic Church of telling people to remain in abusive marriages, it is not true. We have that canon that says separation can be caused by violence. If you are in an abusive marriage, and this abuse could be either even mentally, emotionally, psychologically, or even physically, which could be the worst type of thing, then there is a possibility of you being separated, so that we even avoid what? Great harm. Or there is another term they are using, local authority, physical danger to the other or to the offspring, or otherwise renders common life too difficult, that spouse gives the other legitimate cause for separation. However, it is very important to understand that. And the principle here that the Catholic Church follows is the principle of self-preservation, physical preservation, moral and emotional preservation. Okay? So if I have told you very clearly, and I have come to you holding a knife, and I give you a slap, and I give you another one, and I punch your eye, and I punch your mouth, and I tell you one day I will kill you, self-preservation should tell you to do what? To take to your heels. Because what would be better? To get out of the house in the coffin, or you go away, you separate a little bit until he cools down. Okay? And these are the cases that we are having in our country. Spouses killing one another. Why? Because The offended spouse always was saying what? He is going to change or she is going to change. And then eventually, and mind you, get to know that this is the person with whom you are sleeping in the same bed. So you may not know what he is capable of doing or she is capable of doing when you are less defensive. Okay? We remember the cases when we had so many Nyeri girls sparking their wives, their husbands with the pangas. You remember them? Yeah. And they were saying that they were having reason because they were getting drunk, they would come home, beat them, ask for food, but it's killing the best solution. It's better you go away and you go, the other goes to his side and you go and you cool down. And that cooling down does not simply mean that I come to your dad with a few men and we say I want to have my wife back, and it is simply accepted. Sometimes it could be a trap. Okay? So this one people have to think seriously about it. No? Self-preservation. These are the canons that speak about the possibility of separation because of the issue of violence. Let's go to the convalidation of marriage. The convalidation of a marriage presupposes that the marriage was invalid because of an impediment, and the convalidation of an invalid marriage can only happen if the party conscious of the impediment renews the consent. You remember, we were saying that there are some situations where perhaps the freedom is limited. For example, what is that called? What they do when they get somebody, they go with somebody and then they start asking for money. What? Kidnapping. Can I kidnap a lady and then I go and I start saying, now you are my wife? Was she free? She didn't have the freedom. And can she say no to me? She can't say no to me because she does not even know where she is. Okay? Now, if I even have a child with that young lady and I consider her my wife, and even herself, she gets accustomed to the situation, still there is what? There is an impediment in the area of consent. Now, if I go to the church, or we go to the church and we ask the church, can you please do our marriage? There is a problem of consent because I kidnapped her. But if she grew and she started loving me and she gives her consent freely without being coerced, the church can do that marriage because she has the party that did not give the consent at the beginning now gives consent. That marriage is possible, and that is what we are calling what? The convalidation of an invalid marriage that was there. However, you are my sister. We get married. Can that marriage be convalidated? Even if you give a consent? Even if I give my consent? No. Because convalidation can only happen if there was depending on the impediment. If it was an impediment of consanguinity, you remember that impediment of consanguinity? That we belong to the same biological tree, that you are my sister, that you are my mother, that you are my dad, that marriage cannot be convalidated because it is not even a marriage. It is a union. And these cases are there, even where daughters have children with their dads. Have you ever heard of cases of women who have married their sons? There is a famous case in South Africa. A woman of 50 years got married to her son of 19 years. Can you call that marriage? Do you think the Catholic Church would do such kind of a thing? Never. Not even if Jesus Christ comes and says yes, the Catholic Church will not do that. So the convalidation of the marriage will depend on what type of impediment was there. Okay? That's still the same concept. Radical sanation. There was, first of all, the simple convalidation. Now we come to the concept of radical sanation. Well, radical comes from radicare, which means to root. Sanation is also Latin, comes from the verb sanare, to heal. So the concept is to heal from the root. And in Latin that is called sanatio in radice, to heal from the root. And this one happens, and it is done by the competent ecclesiastical authority at the request of one of the parties in the marriage, who requests to be readmitted into the life of the sacraments, especially the sacrament of Eucharist. If there was or there is sufficient evidence that the other party isn't at all interested in the convalidation of their marriage, you get married, and you get married to the other party, and you do not have the Christian marriage or the Catholic marriage, and then later on, you who is a Catholic, a good Catholic, you want to go back to the life of the sacrament, and particularly the sacrament of Eucharist. And the other party does not want to do the marriage. So, what is going to be done to you if you make the request is this that we are calling healing from the root. Sanatio in radice. Radical sanation. You are the one who is going to be healed. You are the one who is going to be freed from that impediment that was there. Okay? And how does it happen? The party that requests is dispensed from the impediment and follows all the steps of all forms of marriage. The non-interested party must be interrogated as to whether he or she is contrary to the other party being readmitted into the life of the sacrament. What if the other party that is not interested in the marriage says, I don't want her or I don't want him to go back to the life of the sacrament? What do you think that the church will do? The church will listen to that, yes, but the church will go more by what the interested party wants. Because that interested party has the freedom and the right to go back to the sacraments. Okay? Then they must have stayed together for a minimum of 10 years. That should be happening after 10 years, that you want to go back to the life of the sacrament, but the other party does not want to do the Christian marriage. That must be the period of time that you must have lived together. The one to be readmitted into the sacramental life is given a certificate signed by the local bishop. That sanation, radical sanation, is given authority by the bishop. And therefore, those people who want to go back to the sacrament and you have lived together for more than 10 years and the other party does not want to do the sacrament of marriage, get to know that there is a possibility of going back to the sacraments, okay? However, what if the other party now wants, let alone to ask for sanation? Sanation can only be given to one of them, but not to both of them. To both of them, if you want sanation, both of you, then you do the sacrament of marriage. Let alone, the one who did not want to go back to the sacraments, can he come back to the sacraments? He can, but on condition that he accepts to do the marriage. Because once sanation is given to one party, it can never be given to the other party. Okay? Good. And I think that is the end of the session. So now you can ask questions. I could see a burning question from him. Yes, yes, sir. Give the...
Morning. I was interested in the situation that you mentioned in Brazil, where you said that couples would go somewhere separately and they would exchange spouses. Where does that lie in God's eyes? Isn't that sinful?
Of course it is very sinful.
Okay.
It is even debauchery.
Okay.
How do you go? You are part of a club where you go and I get now the word in English, swing clubs. They go there and you have sex with your friend's wife, and he has sex with your wife, and you do like that the whole night. Swing clubs. In Kenya, do we have them?
Certainly.
But in Kenya, because we like copying everything, I'm very sure that they must be there. I'm very sure, but hiding, because even the society will not. Yes. Is it okay?
Let me ask on behalf of Mom there, on matters infidelity. What proofs are accepted by the church?
What?
Proofs. How do you prove infidelity as far as church is concerned?
How do you prove?
Yes.
I'll throw back the question to you, because for sure you know the evidences of infidelity. How do you prove that your spouse has been cheating on you? Is it possible? It is possible.
Let her maybe expound the question for us to understand.
You know that he has been moving with that lady, the other one there, and perhaps even those ladies and the relationship between him and or her with that person is known by everybody. Okay? And perhaps there is even the evidence, a concrete evidence, that is offspring. If all of a sudden a lady comes in front of your door and with the child, and she tells you, well, I want to leave this one here because this man is not giving me support. That's how you come to know that he has been cheating on you. Okay? Or she has been cheating on you. It is very easy to get to know. Okay? And therefore, then, if that case is taken to the ecclesiastical tribunal, and we have ecclesiastical judges and ecclesiastical lawyers, those people who have studied and have done civil law and canon law, and they are able to argue the cases. And if there is even offspring, that is the easiest even thing to do, because they can ask for the DNA test, DNA. And if it is proven, then how can you deny that? Okay? But they say in Africa, men deny until they are dead. I don't know whether it is true or not. Yes, madam.
ask that question, but I would like to add another evidence
Yes.
which has come to mind. If there is proof that one party is faithful and they get a sexually transmitted disease,
Of course.
then there is somebody who is cheating there.
She has given another way of proving. You have not been moving all over the village, and then you have intimacy with your spouse, and then you discover you have a sexually transmitted disease. Where did you get it? You don't get those diseases from eating ugali. Any other question?
Yes, please.
Yes, madam.
Could you clarify up to what blood relationship marriage is not allowed?
Marriage is not possible. Marriage is not possible, I think, up to the third degree. The third degree would include what? Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your cousin, and your adopted child. If you adopt a child, let alone you can, hey, my daughter is so beautiful, I'm going to get married to her. You can't, because you have already created that emotional bond. You cannot even get married to your adopted son. Okay? Yes. Yes, madam.
But I wanted to find out, this man is a Catholic, and he has children with two different women. But he doesn't want to get married to both of them. He is interested with the kids, and now he wants to get marriage through the Catholic Church, but not to them, but to another person.
Huh? That one is even very complicated to explain. He has children with two ladies, and he wants to get married, but not with any of those two ladies, but with another one. The other one is a third wife. No, of course. With another one. Okay, obviously, then that case should be very well studied, and he must know that it should happen like the marriage that happened in Kiambu. It can only be with one, and you have to choose, and you have to make commitments that after that you are not going to go to the others. Okay? Yes, madam.
Thank you for the time representation. My apologies, I've come in a bit late, but I think I've gotten something. Number one, I have to, or rather the aggrieved spouse will have to report adultery within 6 months. As a human being, sometimes you even want to hold on to your issues. You don't want to go saying, my husband, my wife was unfaithful to me. So where does that leave me as a person? Number two, in case of the radical sanation, what if this other spouse, right, you've not married in church, but the interested party want to come and have, to be allowed to receive the sacrament of Eucharist, and the other party does not want to come to be interrogated.
Yeah, that is why I was saying the interrogation happens if the other party will want to do the interrogation. But however, the church will lay much emphasis on the interested party. Okay? So even if the other party is not interested, the church will still give you the sanation. But however, it has to be, if there is a possibility of that dialogue, then the dialogue happens. But if the other party does not want to come for that dialogue, the church will know how to deal with the case of the interested party.
Yes, about the 6 months of reporting the adultery.
Sorry?
About the 6 months where I have to come and report the adultery case seeking for separation. And number 3, that can be conjoined with that, is if I've done a church wedding and I'm seeking for separation, am I still allowed to receive the Eucharist?
Well, in those 2 cases there, that is separation legitimated by violence and adultery. The innocent spouse is allowed to continue with the life of the sacrament of the Eucharist. What about the offending party? What has he or she to do in order to go back to the life of the sacrament? We have the sacrament called the Sacrament of Penance. Okay? If he goes for the Sacrament of Penance, then he goes back to, because he has been forgiven by God. Now, if you want to go ahead with the case, then you report it to the ecclesiastical tribunal, because, well, God forgives and heals immediately. But we human beings, an offense may linger for many years, because it isn't a simple offense. The offense of infidelity hurts profoundly, okay? And therefore, you have the possibility of healing that through the ecclesiastical tribunal. But however, the ecclesiastical tribunal will always be looking and will always be seeking for reconciliation. Okay? Is it clear? So you can go back to the life of the sacrament, and the other one can go, provided he or she goes to the sacrament of penance. Okay? Yes, madam.
Hello, Father. I would like to ask, when the church grants separation to a couple due to infidelity, how long can the separation be for? And what is the next step after the separation if it's not, they're not able to reconcile?
Obviously, when the separation happens, the church, obviously the ecclesiastical tribunal will forward you perhaps to your parish priest, so that he may give you emotional and spiritual accompaniment. For how long? I don't think whether I went through all the section 5 of the canon law to see whether they were giving any limit of time, and they have not given any limit of time. Because forgiveness is a process, and it is a process that can take, for me, some people it can take 1 month, others it may take even more, others it may take even more, okay? So that one obviously will depend on how you are accompanied spiritually in terms of counseling also, so that you are able to go over the offense that was committed against you, okay? The next step would be, as I was saying, that the church will always work for the possibility of reconciliation and going back to the conjugal life. Okay? Then, and obviously, the church will never decide for you, now it is time for you to go back. It will never decide that for you. It will take time with you as long as you are still feeling the effects of the offense. And I tell you guys, it is always good to forgive. Forgiveness heals even yourself. And there are benefits that you get from forgiveness. The first thing is the fact that negative things, negative thinking is very toxic. And it poisons you. And I normally tell people when they come for confessions, those feelings of fury that you have in yourself, they are just like a volcanic mountain. You know, a volcanic mountain, we are told that Mount Kenya is a volcanic mountain, isn't it? And Mount Kilimanjaro. And they erupted so many years back. But do you think that the volcanic activity is not going on? It is going on. And that is even why you see sometimes in the Rift Valley, all of a sudden people, wake up and there is a trench in there because the tectonic plates of the continents, they are still working. And when a volcano erupts, when the mountain erupts, what happens? The fire that comes from within, it destroys even the mountain itself. So volcanic, the feelings of anger, you end up destroying yourself inside, and when you explode, you also destroy yourself externally, and also you destroy other people externally, okay? So the solution to the offenses that people commit to us is forgiveness. And also because also you expect God to forgive you, and also you expect others to forgive you. And Jesus Christ himself said, forgive and you will be forgiven. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who offend us. And I think it's better we come to a conclusion unless there is a burning one. A burning one, okay? Just the last one.
Thank you.
Oh, there is another one. So also you can ask that one. Yes.
My question is closely related to us. Some time back I had, there is a couple that separated, and eventually that they wrote a letter to Rome, and I think now I get to know that there is the ecclesiastical court or something, and they were granted a divorce. But my question is, there is no divorce in Catholic. Is separation permanent?
When it comes to be a permanent thing, it is not divorce. The Catholic Church does not divorce. After a certain period of separation, and perhaps it is also linked to your question, for how long, if that separation was caused by an impediment that was there from the very beginning, then eventually that matrimony will be declared by the church null and void. It never existed. You may even have children, but there was no marriage because there was an impediment, there was an objection, and therefore it will be declared null and void. It was not there, okay? And then both parties have now the possibility of contracting a marriage, okay? Last one.
This is for my consumption. I'm not very familiar with the Kenyan laws, but are children born out of wedlock, do the fathers have an obligation to take care of them?
Yes. Even here in our country, now we don't even have that concept in the canon law of illegitimate children, because there is nothing that is illegitimate child, okay? Both the child was conceived by two people, okay? And therefore, even in the church, even if those children are outside the perimeters of the matrimony, the one who begot those children has the duty and the obligation, theological, moral, and even in terms of fair justice, to take care of those children. Okay? Sawa sawa. She is a lawyer, and perhaps she can tell you better, no?
Actually, there's nothing like an illegitimate child. Children have the right to inherit and to be taken care of, despite the manner in which they were conceived. Then, in cases of consanguinity, the new Marriage Act increased it to the 5th degree. So you have to be very careful before you choose who to marry. Otherwise, it is null and void.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's come to an end. Let's come to an end. We shall have the next session next month, and you can preserve those questions for that session. Now, I want to end by telling you this. There is an ecclesiastical tribunal that deals with marriages in all Catholic dioceses. And obviously the case that you have cited, it did not go from the individual couple directly to the Roman Curia in Rome. It went through the diocese. So make use of the ecclesiastical tribunals that we have. And if there is an issue with you, kindly come to our offices, because we are the people who are trained to deal with those matters, okay? Don't go to ask your friend, because your friend will tell you you have been condemned and you will go to hell. Don't go to them. Come to the right person so that you are given the right information and you are forwarded to the right ecclesiastical departments. For next session, I'm desiring to call the people who work in the ecclesiastical tribunal of the Archdiocese of Nairobi, so that they can come here and they tell you how they do those things, okay? Thank you. May God bless you.
I think if you've not registered, you can register your name, and if not, you're not in WhatsApp group where we communicate and share the notes, you can also see me so that I can add you. If you have any other question in the course of the week, before the next meeting, you can always post there or send them direct to Father, and then when he comes, he's prepared to respond to them. So let us stand and say a word of prayer. In the name of the Father, all glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Now and ever shall be, world without end. All glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. It's now and ever shall be, world without end. All the glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
The Lord be with you. May the Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now let us go in peace. Our session is ended.